severe thunderstorms up here, Millington, Tennessee, stretching back out toward Clarendon, Arkansas, and Stuttgart and DeWitt. We're kind of in the lull on this. It should ramp back up as we go into the afternoons. We kind of engage and bring in a little bit more heating with this. One of the many ways in which we kind of assess that is using our visible satellite picture. It gives us an idea of kind of how much cloud cover there's out there, how much sunshine, maybe just as importantly, we are seeing on this. I'm going to make this a slower loop, and I'm going to force this to go into our kind of meso mode, which if I choose the right one of these, there we go. You can kind of see lots of different stuff sort of developing. And then fastest, yeah. Okay, so you'll notice kind of all the clear skies we have here into Mississippi. That's largely what this is. I want to see if I can tweak. Can I make this a little brighter? I'll tweak our color table here. There we go. That lights up a little bit better. So these ripples that you see down toward Kosciuszko, there are little waves of energy moving northward, but this is that lower level moisture moving northward as well that's going to feed into these thunderstorms. And so we expect additional strengthening of thunderstorms as we progress into and through today. As that moisture just continues to kind of flow freely out of the Gulf of Mexico. You can also see kind of that general convergence up here, which is the reason why in this zone, Oxford to Tupelo to Amory, south and west, is where we expect we're probably going to end up seeing some of our most significant chances for maybe some strong wind gusts. I'd say that's the main impact out of this. Our severe risk for today does include all locations here in North Mississippi under a level 2 out of 5 severe weather risk. The thinking is that from time to time we could potentially have, in particular, damaging wind gusts that exceed 60 miles per hour. And as we've talked a lot about the last couple of days here, one of our concerns in the wind gust potential in particular is just the dangling leftover limbs that are still up there that have not been fully trimmed away, or trees that were damaged from the recent ice storm. And so obviously, you know, in the ice storm area is where we're most likely to kind of have some of those issues, you know, generally in, you know, this zone here back to the west. And my part in Arkansas isn't the most perfect on this. I did not pay as close attention to spots back there. But if you're kind of in this blue zone, it's not going to necessarily take, you know, 70 mile per hour winds to cause some issues. In 40 mile per hour winds, we're going to do that just because of trees that were already damaged and had wind and branches and things like that kind of dangling from it. So we look at the wind zone there. That's, I think, an extenuating circumstance to keep in mind. As we look at the severe risks, there is a tornado risk for today, level 1 out of 5. And we show you these different risk levels. That comes back to the number of reports. Give me a moment. Excuse me. Apparently my breakfast granola bar is going to haunt me for a little bit here. But the tornado risk today is not particularly high. Now, you'll notice that the Storm Prediction Center trimmed this back westward. Honestly, overnight, I left out the different risk criteria on my overnight post because I didn't agree with the Storm Prediction Center. They completely eliminated tornado risk. They added it back in this morning. I agree with that. I think we have a limited tornado risk, and I think they just as easily could have extended this perhaps just a little bit farther east from where they had this as well. But again, that's as we talked about last night at 10 o'clock, you could argue maybe arguing some balls and strikes. You might come just a little bit farther east. Either way, that risk is there to possibly see a few rotating thunderstorms that try to produce tornadoes. I honestly think rotation will probably be a little more effective today at producing, honestly, some hail. I think that hail risk, again, brought to you by True Shield Roofing, does include all locations in that level 1. Again, this comes down to the number of reports. We don't expect to have a ton of reports of hail, but we will have some large hail with this as these storms move in. And we'll look at that with triple threat coming up here in a couple minutes. Another thing I want to show you on this, and this is kind of one of the many factors as I'm assessing this and as we're talking about this, the measure of moisture based on the same scale as the temperature, the dew point here, we put it on the latest time period where we do show some of those kind of purple sort of colors. That's where we have dew points up around the 70-degree point. That's kind of my threshold when we're looking at this and we go, okay, our tornadoes on the table. If we have dew points at 70s and at least generally some upper level winds, it's like, okay, we're going to have to circle that day. We're going to have to come back and kind of reassess what's possible out of this. And so with dew points fairly high out there, that is one of those signs that we very well could be talking about, again, that kind of weather, because we have that moisture all kind of converging northward, kind of working its way northward. And so there's going to be some location here where, you know, perhaps we have just the right, everything at just the right spot to get storms merging in. And then that's where we could potentially have, you know, a tornado threat to go along with it. So we're hoping that's not the case, but that is certainly, I'd say, a possibility. Not necessarily a probability, we'll say a possibility at this point here. But the moisture is fairly well there. And when we look at temperatures, it's the combination of that moisture and the warmer temperatures that kind of impacts it. And you can see our front back north and west with the coldest air lingering behind kind of the leading edge of that there. But I don't think we really tap into super cold air with this. That's why the threat does continue into the extended forecast as well. In particular, we start talking about severe weather risk. Here's today's severe weather risk. Tomorrow's non-factor for us. Monday, we do have a level 1 out of 5 severe weather risk. And I think hail, the main reason this has been put into place, does include, as you can see, about 2/3 of the area. My more significant concern, not for Tuesday, that's back to the west of us. But by Wednesday, we are kind of in the zone here. We've been talking about Wednesday last 3 or 4 days as a time period where all the components could come into place for a more significant severe weather threat. We only do level 2 severe weather risks on day 5, which is what Wednesday technically is. If today is day 1, Wednesday'd be day 5, so 4 days from now. 2 or higher severe weather risks when we start talking that far out. So we do expect a greater risk area and a larger concentration of reports by the middle of next week. Before we talk so much about today, while we have your attention, while we're talking about this, I just want to be clear. Next Wednesday, middle of next week, we're more likely to see damaging winds. We're more likely to see tornadoes. We're more likely to see large hail than what we have with this weekend's threat. So let's keep that in mind as kind of a broader scale, kind of where everything is going here. And the last thing I'll hit before we kind of really dig into all of our model and model data and stuff like that is that very, very heavy rainfall possible out of this. Some of the rainfall totals, I'll use probably some of the national maps here over the last 24 hours. You can see some of those stripes back to the west where you have some oranges there. That'd be 4 more inches of rainfall for some locations that direction. I think by the time these thunderstorms move in here, pretty hefty rainfall totals are possible as well. Over the next 24 hours, conservatively, 2 inches or so possible in some spots. That threat gradually shifting east of us after that with kind of accumulated totals next 3 days where you see some of the yellows on there on a fairly widespread scale. We're looking at spots 2.5 inches of rain possible out of this system. If I were to use really fine scale, high resolution modeling, those numbers would be higher than that as well. So we're going to be watching that obviously closely with the flooding rainfall potential out of this system as well. Okay, so let's now walk through some of our model projections. I had that on 7-day forecast from when I was putting the update together a minute ago here. First and foremost, again, this graphic, I have not changed anything from yesterday. I still think this is largely the same thought process as yesterday. A couple of spin-up tornadoes, a possibility today. Sporadic wind gusts, the most likely issue we see, but there will be some large hail reports, and flash flooding is our greatest confidence threat just because we have so much moisture to work off of with this storm system. So expecting there to be some issues related to that. Our forecast hour by hour as we go through today and into the afternoon will continue to have some of those chances for thunderstorms all the way through, I think, probably mid-afternoon to early evening, kind of our peak coverage, probably somewhere in the mid-afternoon. And damaging wind gusts, again, the main impact, some rotating thunderstorms could briefly produce tornadoes. We'll look at triple threat, we'll look at storm finder, we'll look at all the things. We'll hopefully answer all the questions here in a few minutes. 65 by 8 p.m., we're past the peak by that point in time. So next few hours when things are the most likely. So I'm gonna take this out of play mode here for a moment, and I'm gonna have to do that thing where I kind of edit the graphics while we're talking about it. So give me a moment to kind of back the timing up on this here. So I take that back to current time, let's say local time when played. So here's about where our projections have our storms right now, okay? So this shows on our HRRR model here from Little Rock back up there toward Jonesboro, right? Keep that in mind. The heaviest, it shows Little Rock, maybe a couple Stuttgart toward Jonesboro. It has some near the Mississippi River. It has those weaker. So we're going to do what we refer to as I can't even remember what specific I was going to say. Basically, we're going to correlate to see how the model is playing right now. Is it accurate on its position? So I'd say it's a little bit too far west. So it's no giant shock here, but we show from Stuttgart back to Wynn. So that's about right. Up there to Thurman, which is, again, closer there to the Jonesboro, a little east of Jonesboro. So that is... Can I put that on there? Fairly close, but I'd say still a little bit too far west. So with that in mind, give me a moment to adjust our model. We're going to just kind of adjust the whole thing east to get it about the right spot. I'd say that's closer to correct. So that will hopefully allow us to, adjust things along the timing thought process as well. So you can see still obviously now to the west of us. As we go throughout the next couple of hours here, we're going to have some of these thunderstorms developing back down there into the delta. Let's look and check and see if we have anything in there, because it shows that we should have some down that direction right now. We don't. I can kind of see some of the green there where storms are looking a little bit more like they're trying to get going. Let's go back to that satellite picture. I can kind of see these getting a little bit, brighter. We start getting these brighter cloud tops, one of those signs of kind of what we're looking at there. Make that a little brighter so you can see it. So this is the zone where some of those thunderstorms are going to develop and start working their way toward Greenville, Cleveland, kind of up your direction over the next few hours here. That's the zone we're kind of watching for those thunderstorms to build in. So back again here to the model right there, we're kind of have my, so this shows those are a little ahead on their development of where they are right now. So let's kind of walk hour by hour through this here. A moment. And play that. Okay, so a greater quantity of those by 10 o'clock in the morning. Current time is, we are sitting at 9:30. I think this is overdone. The positioning up here toward Memphis also, now that I've adjusted it forward, might end up being a little bit fast. But we do have this line of thunderstorms, primarily wind, which means primarily severe thunderstorm warnings. But it's not impossible to get a little bit of rotation on some of these thunderstorms here as well. Now notice they all kind of strengthen by around noontime. We show by noontime, again, assuming that eastward adjustment is accurate. We might have gone a little too far east with that. But you do start to see some of the darker areas like Jackson, Tennessee, up here closer to Senatobia, out close to Clarksdale and Cleveland, where those thunderstorms have some of the darker reds indicating heavier rain, indicating stronger thunderstorms there. So those are the spots we're kind of looking at that. I have to adjust some here behind the scenes, get that angle a little better so I can see our chat with the National Weather Service, and I can also see what you're looking at as well. And again, you can join the conversation here as a lot of folks, again, asking some questions there to my right about different things there. We're going to talk about specific spots and things in the next few minutes. So yeah, the what about Amory, different other locations. We'll talk a lot about that here. Appreciate y'all watching from Pickwick and all here across the northern part of Mississippi as we kind of walk through this discussion. And again, appreciate our sponsors. You can see down there in the corner, North Mississippi Health System sponsoring our 24-hour channel, and all the different folks like Northeast that have been with us kind of since the beginning there. If you watch us on Facebook, now is the time. Let's have this, put this up here for just a moment. I'll kind of bring it back to the regular shot for just a second. But now is the time. You need to make sure you download our Mississippi Live Weather app. It is the easiest way to get our alerts. It is free. And if we are live, it's as simple as opening up the app. Every time I do this, by the way, there's green on here, so it's not going to look right. Anyway, you tap on the app. It'll take a second to load. Say that doesn't usually take that long. And then right there at the top, you can see me and our live video like we're talking right now. So it's that easy to find out if we're live. If we're live, it's always right there on the app. Free and available for all your different devices, has alerts and everything else to go along with it. So I'll leave that QR code up here for a moment, and we will kind of talk through this timing a little bit more. So hopefully the positioning is okay on where we have it here. As we go toward, say, 1 o'clock or so, I do show along this line a few bowing segments where you see kind of this sort of arch sort of shape there from Parsons down towards Savannah, Tennessee, and another one closer to Oxford. These would be spots where, again, some damaging wind gusts possible as these kind of push eastward quickly. My concern comes from any of these thunderstorms we have merging in, like these back toward the Chula area. As these merge into our main line, sometimes you get, for the development of storms, beneficial rotation, that then is kind of a constructive, that's what I'm looking for, constructive interference that can help get rotation to strengthen. So definitely watching that potential that those merge in. I'm going to restart this time here for a moment, this graphic, because what I want to do is I want to see how those merge into that line. Oops, I went back to the beginning as opposed to, should just hit the restart that graphic button. Apologize for that. Okay. So we're watching these storms ahead merging into the main line. If we're talking about a tornado potential, that's where that potential comes from. So how these thunderstorms down there toward Jackson, I think we'll probably have more of them down there by around noon to 1 o'clock as those lift in. So those are somewhat overdone on our projections right now. I don't think they'll stay overdone, but I think that is one of the things leaning us toward this still possibly again, having a limited tornado threat. So make sure you have the app downloaded and ready to go just in case. So on our Futurecast here, we show our line. I'll try to kind of keep this all on the screen and not block it with what's going on the bottom there. This would be one of those storms merging in, I think probably sub-severe, but as it hits the line, has a little bit more rotation. The one toward Yazoo City, one we're going to have to watch, as are those back toward Vicksburg as they kind of move in. This largely looks multi-cluster. Multi-cluster meaning we don't have one solid storm that, you know, kind of tracks along kind of the leading edge. It just kind of tracks there by itself. You can clearly make it out the entire time. And then when we have them somewhat multi-cell, that means less organized rotation. And that's one thing we expect out of this, is less organized rotation out of most of these thunderstorms. That's one of the differences from what we have next week on Wednesday versus what we have here, is these will have more of a tendency to be multi-cluster because we have less shear to keep the storms rotating longer. But plenty of heavy thunderstorms out there, still some strong wind gusts, like even that one there in Columbus, probably depicting a little bit of that by 4:30, 5 o'clock. As we go through your Saturday, as we go through this afternoon and into this evening. But still, I think past 6 p.m., our severe weather threat largely should be east of us. Maybe not completely out of Pickens County, but by 7 to 8 o'clock, it does look as though that will be the case. Okay, so there's kind of your rough timing. Let's kind of talk about some things related to this. So probably first place I'm going to start with this is I'm going to pull up our triple threat. If you don't watch us here regularly with Mississippi Live Weather, something you can't get on plan. It is a combination of rotation, wind damage, and large hail through our exclusive strike model, and it lays them all out on the same graphic at the same time. I'll go ahead and pull down that overlay there with all that information. We'll put that chat back up here. So again, something you'll see only here on Mississippi Live is our triple threat. Let's walk hour by hour kind of through this as we go through today. Hold on. I'm going to change my time frame on here so that it makes it to where this is only 24 hours. And so we can walk a little bit more steadily through this. So calibrate this right. I'd say this our strike closer on its initial positioning. What are we looking at here? So the lines where the future radar would look like, I wanted to be at least, what we're really concentrating on is where that future radar is rotation behind, or wind damage or large hail. This is, we look at the rotation on this and on the but initially here, as you note, the thunderstorm I know that there's up here side here for tornado on this. A regular radar, the storms there, and I want to check our discussion with that. So I'll be honest, I don't know this area as well. So I'm looking for a couple specific cities. I think it's this one here. What's interesting is it's behind the kind of leading line there, which is always a little trickier, but that one near east of Mark Tree and southeast of Jonesboro, that's one that they're watching with rotation on it as well, on a severe thunderstorm there. Now, the reason we're looking at this, listen, I know this is not our area. The reason we're looking at this, it gives us an idea of, you know, kind of what the atmosphere is capable of. If we understand what it's capable of at, you know, 10 in the morning in Arkansas, that will help us know a lot better about what it's capable of as it gets closer to us. Yeah, right there. So this still has some rotation. It looks like it's trying to spin something up, but notice the odd direction. Typically, we don't have storms moving from the northwest and with rotation on them there. That's one of the, that's, you know, kind of one of the signs that, again, it's not odd per se, but it's just not as usual as some other things we see. It's one of the signs that we're going to, again, have some spinning parts of these thunderstorms, and hopefully also a sign that most of those spinning parts of these thunderstorms will not, hopefully, you know, will struggle somewhat to produce tornadoes. We'll see. Back in the regular rainfall mode on this there, I'm looking all the way back from Monroe County on that. Let's look back closer to the Memphis area. So that's an example of one of these thunderstorms that might be hiding behind the initial wave there, and that's where that, again, limited chance for some rotation and possibly trying to produce a brief tornado comes from. Okay, that aside, I wanted to get an idea and calibrate. That was the word I was looking for a minute ago. Calibrate how our triple threat was behaving and how close it was on some things there. So as we kind of go through the first couple of hours here on triple threat, it's close-ish on where it's depicting some of these areas of rotation. It was a little too far north on that, but it does have some of these tracks, but it also has the direction a little bit more east than what you saw in the progression of that storm there, a little more east-southeast. So I'm going to put these pieces together as we look at this, you know, kind of live at the same time here, because this triple threat comes in very often. And so we're kind of looking at the latest. I think one of the things that instantly stands out on this to me is that, at least on our strike model, this does not look like, you know, high-end strong rotation. This is not up here in the super high to extreme category. At least on our strike model here. We will look at the HRRR, which I think is a little more aggressive on that here in a minute. But what this does depict is this does still have some rotating thunderstorms once this gets down here in the Mississippi in kind of the western and northwest portion of the state as early as, say, noon to 1 o'clock. I'm watching this one that shows there for Water Valley. And some of these others as they get eastward, for also producing some hail. That's what you see here with the pinks, or some of the hail potential on this as well. One question that I think, let me go and clear off that for a second. You can kind of see the wind in the background there. In a moment, I'm going to put my wind over top of that as I'm going to balance kind of all these there. There we go. The wind contour is kind of on top. So you don't see a ton of blue. We see some red, and the pinks kind of stand out very well, sort of on top there. Some sporadic hail possible out of this, but we're not expecting it to be as big as what we had last week. These are not going to be big hail producers there. And as this line kind of moves through, we'll kind of look at the aggregate of the overall threat here for a moment. So some spots where we do have some brighter bands of rotation. Again, this is one model at one time. Positioning will be just a little bit off on some of those there. But what I don't see are long stripes. I always look for long stripes of rotation when we're going to have something that's, you know, a high-end tornado. I don't see long stripes. You can see some of those who are a little more impressive back to the west of us, but that's one takeaway. So brief spin-up style tornadoes I think are possible out of this. I'm going to clear off on our triple threat the rotation for a moment and the hail so that I can highlight the wind for a second here. And so I have this set where pretty hard on the wind. I'm going to bring it down here. So this would be 20, 25 mile per hour winds or greater on a fairly widespread scale. But if we start looking at, okay, well, when do we start getting the truly severe winds? You'll notice there aren't a lot of pockets out there. We have some spots where, again, this is 30 to 40 mile per hour winds depicted on there, but it's not over the top everybody on at least the triple threat. Now, I will say this. I have not Again, we're still learning how to use the triple threat, and in particular the wind portion of this. The wind swaths, I think, sometimes underdo it a little bit. Let me go, here we are. Oh man, I see what we've done. Give me just a second here. I had that set for wind swath. That needs to be wind gust swath. That makes a lot of sense. Give me a moment. I need to write that on my list. Fix you on triple. Okay, let's see if it'll give me that other color table again, because that's been my problem. So there we go. Okay, and now let's take that, and I'm going to check with our color table here for a moment. So now we can kind of highlight it back to where it's, see, this does not go extreme on the wind even there. So we first start to get it starting to show up there, 40 to 50 mile per hour winds. So again, nothing that's super over the top on this, but obviously it does have some wind out there, but at least it's not over the top on that. Okay, so that was our issue. I had that set for wind swath instead of wind gust swath. I apologize for that. That'll show up a little brighter from now on once I get that in there. So takeaway, in my opinion, looking at triple threat, I know that's a long tangent. We have some more rotation. I think rotation that will then try to occasionally produce tornadoes. That's, I think, the main thing that I pick up on that is that it will be spinning storms that also produce wind damage as opposed to going over top and producing tornadoes. Could they produce tornadoes? There does remain that potential out of it. Let's look at the latest here on our rotation track, specifically just the rotation. And I'm going to show you this with our kind of rotation tracks hour to hour here. So the timing on this might be a little slow. We talked about this a minute ago, how the timing on that other one was a little slow. Let's adjust this eastward slightly. I think longitude, we need to go. There we go. I'm gonna have to take each of these eastward just a little bit. It's gonna be a moment to do that. About 3/10 of a degree of longitude should be enough. Boop, boop, boop. There we are. That's pretty close to where things are right now. Let's check and see. Yeah, that's pretty close on its position where things are right now. Okay, so I think we can kind of reliably go off of this. Again, a reminder that these storms that are critical to the overall rotation back out here south of Greensville, they do not practically presently exist. So that is one way in which the model has overdone things, and that one little overestimation could play a big factor, because these areas of rotation are going to be kind of important to what overall happens here. Now we show our line. I want you to see the uptick in the trend here. This depicts. See how you have all those little red stripes? We don't have much 10:30. Don't have many through 11 showing up. Noontime, and those reds start showing up. So that is because as we go toward this afternoon, we have a little more instability. Thunderstorms grow stronger and taller, more rotation, and potential for a greater number of these to try to produce tornadoes. Now, one thing I notice on these is there are some, like these up here in the Tennessee, that do have some longer stripes. But farther south, I'm a little less impressed by that. And certainly this batch here south of Greenwood, I'm least impressed with as well. So a lot of times we get this kind of red all over the place like this. That's saying, hey, it's a big line of wind. There are little places in the line of wind where there's shear and rotation. Sometimes those can pop out a tornado warning. Occasionally they can produce a brief one, but they're typically not long lasting. They're typically not strong. So now as we go there towards, say, 2 p.m., again, not overly impressed by the majority of those storms of what I'm seeing there. I'd say same thing for 3 p.m. as well. Some damaging wind possible. I'm going to walk forward a little bit. I want to watch this stuff down there toward Eupora and see how that progresses, because those are some pretty heavy cores. Those still look a little unsynced. Notice how there's kind of a jump there. If that one right there went right northeastward there and continued up closer to West Point, that's when I get, concerned. But see how it kind of jumps then south again, south and east, more east and south. A lot of times when that happens, we don't have them continue to produce tornadoes, and you can see here, or they don't produce tornadoes at all. And then again, less of those stripes as that moves eastward. So here's my take looking at storm rotation here on our HRRR model. I think that's about as good a scenario as we can ask for, in that we are going to have, again, maybe some sporadic rotation out of this line, but that looks less likely that we're going to be talking about, long track storms. One of the things that's really interesting on this, if we go back to this thunderstorm out here into Arkansas that we were watching, the one that was kind of behind here, the one that was near Taronza and kind of worked its way kind of south and eastward. Two things that are interesting about this and why this matters to exactly what we're talking about here. So you have this thunderstorm right there. It kind of has a little bit more south of east motion, right? I'll make this a little slower. I'll click now. We'll make this a 30-minute loop, and I'll kind of telestrate on this for a moment. So you can see this is kind of moving this direction here, right? That storm right there. So all of the storms we were looking at a moment ago that the model had that were tall enough kind of had more of a this direction, that you can see my hands, moving a little bit more east than that. That slight change in direction can sometimes be enough to mess up the shear and limit the tornado potential on this. So that's one thing that I'm interested to see. This one has not gone over the top and has not produced a tornado at this point here. But that's something that, looking at the model projection, I think could be impacting the output of the rotation. Because let's go back and look at this for a second. So this will be one of those things, the difference between what ends up happening and what we're seeing in models here for a moment. So this is where we come back to what we're looking at in the golden triangle. And watch how we have this thunderstorm here around Starkville. Again, positioning matters less than what the model is kicking out, because we're trying to understand what the model is showing us. Because models are always wrong. We just have to figure out how they're wrong, and then we can figure out what the atmosphere is doing, and then come to a conclusion from that. So again, we're trying to, kind of like a detective, put together a bunch of different pieces here on this. But you see how these show stripes that go a little bit more north of east? Okay. But the storm itself is going more directly east, right? I'm watching that purple area there, north of Louisville. Hold on. And that has a little bit of a northerly component, right? If you look at that, that goes a little bit north if I look at the heaviest part of that. So this projection going a little more this direction, if there's an even slight change in direction there, that could impact the rotation on these. So that's one thing I'm going to be watching as we go through the morning, kind of behind the scenes here, is how does that evolve, and does that then tweak up our rotation chance just a little bit, because the model's saying, hey, overall direction is going to have a little bit more of a northerly component, when the reality is it might be directly east or southeast, and that change in slight direction there then impacts how these rotation tracks are calculated. Because weather is all math, we just have to have the right inputs into that math to get the correct answer out of it. Okay, so here's kind of my thoughts now that we're sort of taking all this into play. I'm gonna check one more thing. I'm gonna check our storm finder. I'm gonna drop that in here for a moment. Again, another thing you'll find exclusively here on Mississippi Live Weather is our storm finder. And we're gonna do, we'll just say next 24 hours. We can talk a little bit about that extended forecast here in a minute as well, but I don't want people to confuse those threats. So what Storm Finder does, the purple you see in the background here is storm chances, obviously where we think the chances are very high. We're going to have thunderstorms. In the foreground, you kind of see the yellow, which is the quantity of lightning strikes, a greater quantity of lightning strikes. Obviously, that's kind of verification of storm intensity and storm quantity to a certain extent. And then behind it, kind of the radar images where the future radar from our strike model is depicted there. So in Storm Finder, we can see the intensity is not as impressive as expectations last night, locations back to the west of us, right? There's more orange showing up on there, the brighter orange, meaning colder cloud, not colder cloud tops, but in this case, meaning a greater quantity of lightning strikes with this. Now, so we kind of have more isolated areas where they get stronger. By 2 p.m. on this particular projection, you can see, and maybe it's even easier to kind of show these big hills here. I just have it set to go taller where there's just a greater number of lightning strikes, just to kind of draw your attention more to those areas. So that cluster we have there that's just south of Oxford, closer to Yalobusha County, that'd be one of those locations where a greater quantity of lightning strikes on this at that time. And then as we go into, say, 3 to 4 o'clock, there are a few spots there where it briefly looks like it touches kind of red. They're closer to, say, Monroe, Clay County. So those would be thunderstorms. If we kind of look below here, that, you know, with a greater number of lightning strikes, there's more instability, more fuel that they're using, and there's just a more tumultuous atmosphere, and that separates the charge greater, and you produce more lightning in that situation. And so that kind of draws our attention. Lightning is always, if you're watching me and I'm talking about something, and you see just a ton of lightning on a thunderstorm that I'm not talking about, and that thunderstorm's going toward you, that should always grab your attention, because lightning shows, to a certain extent, works back to kind of the turbulence in the atmosphere. A more turbulent atmosphere, stronger updraft, stronger downdraft, stronger storms, more lightning. And so whether I'm talking about it or not, if you've got a ton of lightning out of a thunderstorm, that's one that needs to be paid attention to. Might not have the rotation, but that sometimes a lightning jump is something that can lead before we see some of those other components here. So for locations, say Cleveland, Greenville, back in the Delta, notice how this does kind of jump around you. I'm hoping for your sake that that's the case, but then these get stronger. See, this shows kind of the northern half there, somewhat stronger. We kind of reach that peak on this, and some of those there going from Noxubee County back out toward Tuscaloosa, say closer to 7 o'clock for tonight. But you can see that kind of intensity jump there, and the fact that they're more isolated thunderstorms is always interesting. This shows really in that 2 to 5 p.m. time, things we use to help kind of refine the time period of peak impact on this. So again, some redevelopment and intensification possible with this line as we go through this afternoon. As we head into tonight, still a possibility to have some rumbles overnight. I am interested by the fact that this particular projection, and I want to double check, make sure we're on the latest here. That is the latest. Has kind of this uptick in lightning and everything behind this main line later into this evening. Give me a moment here to get rid of lightning for just a second. That's a pretty hefty little line it has redeveloping by around 10:30 or so. So let's say this, very rarely do we pull off 2 strong lines of thunderstorms. Typically we're one and done, for lack of a better way to put it. But that's a pretty hefty little line, and that looks like there's some rotation in that batch as well. I think that might have been one of the things on our triple threat that was throwing me off, is that it has some rotation on that secondary line there. That is not something that all of our projections agree upon, getting that secondary batch there. So we'll look more closely at that here in a minute. I'm interested to see about that. Okay. So either way, that's all out of here by church time tomorrow. We'll probably still have some showers and thunderstorms that try to linger, or at least some showers into the day. But that's interesting to see that quantity of storms, because I'll bet if I go back a model run on that, give me a moment here to do that. Latest should be, is this still 6Z latest? Yeah. Let's go back to 0Z last night. So it had that. So initial round you see there, and then kind of this secondary batch that sort of redevelops this evening. That's less intense. So the trend is that the overnight round is a little heavier, at least on our strike model, and it can sometimes be a little more aggressive than I'd like. Interesting. Let's go back. Let's revert this back to what it's supposed to look like. Before we go for that, you know, if we've kind of referenced a few times here that we have some more storms in the next week. I'll show you as far out as Storm Finder goes on that for a moment. So again, looking into next week, there's that batch. Does this have... This does not... Here, hold on. I want to revert changes. Oh, I think I messed it up. Hold on a second. I deleted out my lightning and I messed the whole thing up. Just a moment. There we go. Okay. We're back. So that secondary round overnight, something we're going to investigate closer here in a minute. Most of the thunderstorms south of us, as you can see, for the first part there of early Monday, and then Monday afternoon, here's that chance for some thunderstorms. I'm interested because these do look like they could be hail-producing thunderstorms. If I kind of zip underneath that there, that one near Belzone, an example of that. These could be hail-producing thunderstorms. These also will have some shear, so there's a non-zero tornado threat with Monday as well. As you can see, looking at the pink there, we kind of are generally toward the bullseye of the storm chances as well. So hence the reason we have that level 1 severe weather risk for Monday, continuing the Monday evening. Tuesday, those risks primarily not for our area, and this is going to run out of data before it really gets into Wednesday, isn't it? I have 5:30 Wednesday morning. I'm going to push this to where it runs out of data, so I know we've at least used up all we have. The fact we can go this far out anyway, to even approaching midday Wednesday, is incredible. Didn't used to have that capability at the old place. That particular projection is going to be a little slow, I think, on where it's positioning some of those things. We'll look at that a little bit more here in a minute. Okay, we're going to check a different model here for a second. We're going to go over, we're going to look at that HRRR, which allows us to kind of look at that rotation as well. I'm going to make sure that this goes the full 18 hours out. Should be enough, because I want to look at that kind of secondary batch. See, this has no secondary batch developing. And that's a significant difference from what we were looking at a moment ago there, right? This says, no, there's nothing redeveloping behind this farther north. I would tend to agree with this. I think it's a very difficult to get a secondary round of storms after an initial round that prompts really severe thunderstorm warnings. In the most ideal situation, that sometimes can happen, but I don't think this is the most ideal situation. So I'm hoping that that is something that kind of trends away from that. But I'd say certainly something we're watching, a possibility there. But looking at the HRRR model, that's just not on there. I would tend to agree with this here. For folks just back to the north and west of our coverage area, we've been kind of watching some of these thunderstorms up here into Tennessee. I believe in the last moment here, National Weather Service, on that same thunderstorm we were watching, has issued a tornado warning up there for Millington, Tennessee, locations north of the Memphis area. Let's kind of see what's in that thunderstorm. We're not going to stay nonstop on this storm. This is outside of our primary coverage area up here. We are going to take a look at it because how it behaves helps us understand how our storms are going to behave. And I'm going to pull off. By the way, for North Mississippi, we do again have this severe thunderstorm watch. That's what's in green here. I'm going to pull it off our map here in a second because I don't want to draw more attention to that than we need. But look, counties there in green under that severe thunderstorm watch until 2 p.m. The rest of us will likely be extended into a severe thunderstorm watch or tornado watch later on this afternoon. Even in our discussion with the National Weather Service, they say that the warning there for up here in Tipton, Shelby County, Tennessee, as well as Critterton and Mississippi County, Arkansas, is not likely to be a strong tornado. But kind of right back there, there's a little nook west of Shake Rag is where this area rotation is. So again, not a strong area of shear on this. We do show some spots. This kind of works the same way as that rotation track we were looking at a moment ago there. That's kind of what this is designed to show us, is that shear, that rotation on this. And this swath kind of gives us an idea on those rotation tracks. So this is kind of the real-time version of what we were looking at before. I'm going to pull off our watches here. Give me a moment. Let's get thunderstorm watch. There we go. Okay, so we can kind of hone in on this. So this was my concern a minute ago. See how even in our shear swath, as we showed on here, or this kind of shear track or rotation track, how there is a solid, and ignore the time of arrival you see here, but pay attention to the arrow. See how it's kind of a solid this direction as opposed to our models that we're trying to go more east and more northeast. That difference in direction there can be the difference between the model picking up on one that connects hour to hour, and so us missing the strength, or at least the way I look at it, looking at it a little bit different there. We don't have what we call a shear marker on it. One of those things you'll see here on Mississippi Live, a little circle that kind of helps us circle in on where that tornado would be. Do not have one of those on this thunderstorm up here, but a tornado warning. I'll give you some spots again. I'll go and circle it here. We'll show you, and then we'll kind of move back on to what we're doing here in North Mississippi. But the area that we'd be most concerned with is going to be right about there. And this moving eastward with this. A new discussion with the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma about this, this kind of storm activity we're talking about here. And this does include the rest of us. So if you do not presently have a severe thunderstorm watch or any sort of alert for you, we do expect those to be expanded in the next few hours here. So again, tornado warning just north of our area. I'm not going to kind of dwell on that too terribly long, but that's just kind of a spot that we're watching. And if you happen to just be watching us up there, and you do need to, you've stumbled upon our coverage, there's your information on where to find your safe place on that up there in Shelby County, Tennessee, where we're watching that. So I'll bring it a little bit closer. We'll leave it there for a moment. But let's talk for a second here about kind of the rest of our primary area, our primary zone. So a new watch is likely to be issued within the next couple of hours here. The technical discussion behind the scenes, as I'm reading this with the folks at the government, with the Storm Prediction Center, as this came out about 3 minutes ago here, what we call a mesoscale convective discussion. Yeah, North Mississippi. This is a fairly long watch. Gradually intensifying organizing thunderstorm activity could pose increased potential for strong to severe wind gusts while spreading eastward. 1 to 3 o'clock time period. It's really, kind of tracking eastward. And then as we talked about the, 2 to 4 o'clock, probably peak time for our specific area. 1 or more severe weather watches will be needed within the next few hours. So the watch again comes before the warning. We start talking about, kind of how to prepare here, preparing before. We prepare before when we are in our watches, and so we want to keep our phone charged. All the information you see below me here. Let's again talk about this here. So a corridor of strong pressure rises have been developing northeastward across Batesville and Walnut Ridge vicinity of northeastern Arkansas as storms work their way eastward. Kind of behind a big boundary of strong winds. Appears to be accompanying strong winds aloft that will overspread much of Kentucky and Tennessee through the afternoon. Some of the models suggest that this should weaken some, but maintain the west-southwest winds aloft. This is going to help alongside the fact we have more heating going on out there to produce, I think, more fuel for thunderstorms ahead of where they're kind of popping up now. And that's going to support at least a gradually strengthening thunderstorms. And as we go in the afternoon, potential for that to become widespread, strong to severe wind gusts to the north is becoming more likely. So watching that potential there as well. So all of that to say, our chances for thunderstorms, they didn't tell me as much as I hoped they would tell me in that discussion. Our chances for thunderstorms are increasing, and the potential for us to see some that produce damaging winds in particular are as well. Give me a second. I'm going to pull up the exact area that they were highlighting here so that you can see that. Give me a moment to put that on the screen. So this is the exact spots that they were highlighting a moment ago there. What if I can open a new tab and I'll center it? Yeah, there we go. So here are the locations they were talking about there. We're kind of on the far south end of their overall discussion area there. But this is all that unstable air kind of working its way in just ahead of our kind of line of thunderstorms. It's running ahead of the main line itself. So we're kind of on the development end. So probability to see additional severe weather watches kind of in this brown zone they put on here. Sometimes when they have kind of a high confidence level on this, they'll give us a color, they'll give us an idea on which they're going. The fact they put brown on there means they're not sure which kind of watch they're looking to go with on this here. But a severe weather watch possible out of this. I'm going to save this and I'm going to pass this on our Facebook here for just a moment while we're discussing. Okay, apparently we will. There we go. So I'll put you back over here to our main version of radar here for a moment. So tornado warning up there north of the Memphis area. Again, that's not a spot that we cover, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. But that gives us an idea again of what this is capable of. I think spotty, strong wind reports and spotty tornado warnings not an impossibility out of this. Okay, so we've got your chat on there. Appreciate y'all watching. And Ingomar, congrats by the way on your state championship for the girls there in basketball, and all the folks around here that have had those. Give me a second to post behind the scenes here. I'm gonna I'm gonna create a post. I'm gonna put that post we just showed you a second ago out there, because there are some people that are only that don't necessarily stick around for the whole live stream. So we'll get that out there so people know that a watch could be coming out here fairly soon. Let's give it just a second to post that. And while that's happening, put your questions beside me here and we'll start answering those questions. So I'm going to look here kind of from Ingomar down probably first. Drop your comment there and we'll talk here in a second. Additional severe weather watches are possible this afternoon. Damaging winds and a brief tornado could accompany some large hail potential. There we go. And we'll click publish. And let it do its thing. So give me just a second to let that happen here. Okay. And no, I don't want to create an ad, because I don't know if that does that to you, but Facebook always wants me to create an ad. Okay. So current time is 10:06. Let's see what we've got here in some of the questions next to me there. Which direction is this going? So the one up there in Tennessee is going almost directly east. This line of thunderstorms is all going to move from west to the east. We're watching south of Cleveland there. We're really kind of watching this zone back here closer to Greenville. This has been slower to develop. This is where some of these thunderstorms come in and then merge with our primary line. And in that merger, sometimes you get rotation, you start causing some issues there. So that is kind of the answer on that, is that these storms are all kind of moving from west to east. There's even a little bit more of a southeast movement on some of the individual thunderstorms itself. What about Wren? What about Alcorn County? What about Calhoun City, Water Valley? Hey, Calhoun City, congrats on your championship as well. Okay, so a lot of different folks just want an impact. So let's kind of talk generally speaking about some times here as well. And so I think the easiest way to show times is to go back to our, not that one, to go back to Storm Finder. I think Storm Finder has a great handle on timing here. And so giving you an idea, again, where most of the thunderstorms are now, I think, change Storm Finder, I'm going to make it go 12 hours. Let's go 18 hours. So I can be a little more sensitive on where we're at here. So again, for some timing, these thunderstorms getting stronger, 1 o'clock out here, Batesville, maybe a little bit sooner than this here. for some of the spots. But, you know, Oxford, Holly Springs, we're kind of getting stronger there by 1:30. By 2 o'clock, it's closer to Water Valley. Again, what you're looking at with the yellow here, this is a greater concentration of lightning strikes. I'll take it back to truly 2D mode so you get kind of an idea of exactly where. And I'm going to cut through the lightning there, and I'm going to cut the opacity down some just so you can kind of see through it. I think we get the idea of where the lightning is. There we are. Something like that. So you can see kind of at least city names through that. So you can kind of see that storms that's showing near Oxford there. There are lots of lightning on those. Strengthening farther east, watching, if you were talking about Tupelo and Amory, we're in that 2 to 4 o'clock time period here, maybe 5 o'clock there toward Aberdeen or so, and then working eastward.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Not talking to you. Sorry, Siri. It's not all about you. And then Golden Triangle eastward, say by 5 to 5:30. So again, if I kind of rewind this here for a second, this is all in Arkansas now. We get in this zone here where we're Holly Springs to Oxford to Grenada by 1 o'clock, maybe 1:30. Could probably have some damaging winds out of that part there. Out here closer, and this is where I get really interesting in what we're seeing. Really interested. I'm interested to see these thunderstorms like what shows Saltillo, Algoma, Pontotoc on strike here. It has some of those just kind of developing ahead, right? You don't have just the line moving eastward, but these sort of develop 1:30, 2 o'clock. If this happens, I get a lot more concerned on the tornado potential on these. So not impossible to get, again, some rotation on these that develop ahead. They would also have a slightly greater chance to produce some large hail. Those lead storms are the ones we'd be more concerned with that potential. That looks a lot more hail on that one near Okolona there by, say, around 3 to 3:30. Certainly a lot of lightning out of all those thunderstorms. So, again, I think you can kind of generally see the time there. Amory, we're probably 3 to 5 p.m. there, maybe as early as 2:30 or so. And then Fayette, Alabama, Columbus, you know, probably 3 to 6 o'clock, but obviously closer to the exact time you see there on the top of the screen, and eastward after that. And again, as we talked about a minute ago, this has these additional thunderstorms on Storm Finder developing behind this. I think that is an aggressive output. Certainly as we go through the day, we'll see some signs whether or not the atmosphere can kind of recover back here. I'd be kind of shocked if it got as intense as what it's indicating here by 10 p.m. We'll be watching it, but I think that's a very aggressive look at what we could see there. Appreciate y'all in New Hope, Guntown, Oxford. Hopefully that timing we talked about there helps a little bit. So would get Tonners after. Hold on, Nicole, BJ and Nicole, clarify exactly what you're meaning there, because I might have forgotten already what I was going to say after Storm Finder. Oh, that I think we're going to look at the tornado warning up there. So Arkansas now at 10 a.m. Yeah, I mean, Arkansas, if you're talking about Arkansas, you know, you're kind of in it right now. And I have not spent a whole lot of time really refining Arkansas, so I apologize for that. But, you know, Arkansas is pretty much right now. Let's get back here to Mama Justice Doppler radar here for a moment, kind of looking at some of these thunderstorms up here, still what they're capable of. Looks like they put out another tornado warning farther north up there toward Kentucky with this. Let's go back to our high resolution Mama Justice Doppler radar, and I will make this kind of a shorter term 30-minute loop as we kind of assess what this storm is the most capable of. And I do see a few spots there where that's kind of wrapped up pretty well. Let's go back to the wind rotation mode. Yeah, a couple spots. A little more obvious right there. I don't know that that's still producing there, but it's basically right over top of the radar site at this instant. There was another little one kind of coming in from the north. So certainly east of this, let's go ahead and bring this into the current time here for a moment. Again, some trees reported down in the Jonesboro area with this storm as it moved through there. Let me double check the speed on this. Give me just a moment. They are going 25 miles per hour east-southeast. think that's reasonable. So let's go back to, honestly, I'm gonna have to be on precipitation mode, and I'd have our area right there over top of the radar site. We'll go 25 miles per hour. And again, this is outside of our area. Here we go. That's some of the spots in advance. Gonna tornado warning there for Shelby County, Tennessee, and Tipton County, Tennessee, in effect until 10:45 a.m. Current time is 10:13 a.m. There's another spot I'd say next in this severe thunderstorm warning, just south for Shelby County. One little spot there where we have a little rotation as well. You know, when you look at a line like this, you typically don't have long-lived areas of rotation. Typically, they're fairly short-lived, but I'd say I see one right there. I kind of see one that might be right over the radar site, and there was one slightly north. These little areas of spin. And that's the kind of storms we're going to see today, where it's like, okay, we're going to have to watch all along this leading edge down here, where the little areas of spin, kind of moving more from the west as opposed to kind of the typical. A lot of times people think, oh, it's southwest to northeast. That's not going to be the track of these today. If we have a rotation, we have a tornado, it's going to be pretty west to east in its movement. And typically would be very short-lived, only a couple of minutes in length. Hopefully we won't see them at all, but that would be kind of what we're looking at. We have a couple other components here that I don't use very often. I'm going to check here for a moment. I'm going to check kind of our ability to put on some additional data. So give me just a moment here to see if some of these populate in. So that'd be depicting in some of that rotation. I think the angle on that a little bit wrong. But this is just me trying to see if I can get anything to pop out of it there, and don't have a lot. So again, I think the short-lived rotation nature on these, one of the factors that kind of goes with that. If we check our severe threats, where we kind of analyze all the different severe threats at once, I'm looking from too far away. There we go. Again, this shows hail as really that primary threat on that batch there. Let me make sure I'm on the right radar site. Yep. We'll make that 30-minute loop. Again, from time to time, it kind of kicks out something where it sees a little bit of rotation. But this is one we're just going to have to kind of interrogate the storm all by itself to kind of get an idea on that. So I hope that answers that question. For Tennessee, our designated area that we were so time on this. But I do know, again, if you're up here, let's make sure that we are in that tornado safe place. That, of course, in this case, this is a tornado warning issue because the Doppler radar indicated rotation that could lead to the development of a tornado. Sometimes we get some lead time on these. A lot of times we're just kind of reacting once we see the information. And I'll tell you, just kind of looking at the wind mode here, I think that the most likely spot is directly over top of the radar site there up in Millington, Tennessee, very close to where the National Weather Service is. They're a little south of that there at the Agri Center. But right there where the radar site is up in Millington, that looks like it's one of the most likely locations to be seeing something at this point. And that's, again, a tornado warning there in Shelby County, Tennessee. So again, make sure to understand that this is Doppler radar indicated, but your safe place is where you need to go. You want to make sure you're in a sturdy structure in the middle of the lowest floor, a small windowless room where you can wrap up in blankets and pillows, put on a helmet to protect yourself from debris, and then stay there until the all clear is given for your location. If you've just kind of stumbled upon us on YouTube and what have you, we are a 24/7 streaming service called Mississippi Live Weather. We concentrate on the northern part of Mississippi in particular. We do cut-ins again for other sections of the state when there's life-threatening severe weather. But anyway, we concentrate on the northern part of the state. We have an app. Easiest way to get our information and everything from us as well there. So download the free app available for all of those different devices. As we bring our chat back up here where we're kind of trying to answer some questions, and I think we'll shut this down here in a few minutes. Watching from Winona, what's going on Millington? You have a tornado warning up there in Millington, so I hope you're in your tornado safe place. I hope we've also answered that for you in the last few minutes here. Looks like it's moving faster than models thought. I think this is pretty close. Models are almost always too slow when it comes to these kind of fast-moving systems. They're almost always a little bit slow, especially if they really pick up ahead of steam. I think they're fairly close on timing here. As we looked in Denmark, we're looking at the sunshine there. Wind picking up in Millington. Hey, Megan, you need to be in your tornado safe place. I'll just be crystal clear. That's where you have to be. And let's talk here for a moment about what are some unsafe places for you, because obviously I know we have at least one person there that's commenting, that they are in Millington, and this is basically right overhead. This is the strong straight line winds moving in, whether it's strong straight line winds, whether it's there in the middle. We need to make sure that we are not in large open rooms, upper floors, or rooms with windows. Cars, trucks, and mobile homes, the most unsafe places you can be in a tornado. They're all things that can be thrown. We need something with a solid foundation, and that's what we need, a place with a solid foundation where we can kind of hole up and hide until the storms move out of here for you. And so that's what we're looking at up here, our sheer top of that. I would say that it's at the very least some damaging winds with this. I'll use my purple color here, kind of coming around the backside there. This is kind of pushing forward, and whether or not it's actually doing it or not, there's an area here in advance where winds are going to try to get in kind of in advance, and that's where you have your rotation. So if this hasn't produced a tornado, this is damaging winds. It's just moved through Millington, moving toward Bolton and Arlington and Galloway. Again, this is not in our primary coverage area, but again, because I know we at least have a couple folks out there, we want to make sure that we are what is core area at this time. So just a heads up, stay safe. Looking for tornado debris or anything along those lines. That's not something I can confirm with this at this point in time as well. Clear off kind of my telestration on that. If I were looking for debris, it would be kind of right below here, and I don't see anything that's on that level at this point in time, thankfully. Okay, let's bring it back here again to North Mississippi and change it back over to our closest radar site here out of Columbus Air Force Base. Still looking a long, long ways away on this, and try to answer a few more of your questions. So bring up our chat. Before we go any further, I just brought up the chat, but we need to do this here real quick. We need to make sure that you know where, again, two things. We just talked about where to go in thunderstorms, and in particular in tornadoes, the lowest floor of a sturdy structure, a small windowless room, but knowing when to go is just as important. We have the Mississippi Live Weather app. It has alerts. They work great. But weather call is a phone call alert. And you might have heard my phone from time to time starting to pick up here just a little bit, as I'm getting more text messages and more folks, closer by are starting to hit me up. So I have to put it on silent mode. But you can miss alerts like that. A phone call, someone calls my phone right now, it's going to ring and you're going to hear it, and you're going to hear it live on TV like this. So make sure to get weather call, because that disruptive phone alert, it can be that thing that makes you realize, hey, something's going on, and you utilize to, again, get to your safe place. So again, kind of the overarching theme here, and then I think we'll probably try to shut this down for at least a little bit, because I'm going to need some energy a little later on today. As you can see, some tornado warnings back up to the north and west with this, up into Shelby County, Tennessee. Some severe thunderstorm warnings up that direction as well. The severe weather risk for everybody in the yellow zone here. Tornado risk, again, not expecting a lot of tornadoes, but a couple brief tornadoes are possible. So let's go ahead and I'll bring it back in here for a moment. So here's that severe weather risk, as you can see, involving all locations here across North Mississippi and Western Alabama that we cover here on Mississippi Live Weather, and in some form or fashion, a severe weather risk for the whole state. The tornado risk is more isolated, the northern part of the state. All the dots you see on there are lightning strikes, so I'll pull those off. But the areas in green, this comes down to the number of reports, and we expect to have a more limited number of reports of severe weather today. When we look at the wind potential out of this, that's the peak severe weather impact, whether it's rotation that then develops into a brief tornado, or wind that is just coming straight lines. That wind is going to be the factor in both cases. Wind that kind of wraps around, tries to produce a tornado, or wind's just coming at you. That's where we're going to get sporadic reports of wind damage out of this. So a lot of those rotation tracks are likely just damaging wind that the model's miscoding. And that does happen in this scenario. Hail, our True Shield Hail Roofing, again, sponsoring our large hail risk. All locations involved. This is not likely to be as great a quantity as what we had last week, but a few large hail reports remain a possibility out of this today. And just so you know, we have an additional severe weather risk for Monday, level 1 out of 5. Again, this comes down to confidence, number of reports. I think hail, once again, could be the main factor for Monday. But next week, by Wednesday, a severe weather risk that involves most of us and will involve all of us, more likely to see tornadoes than what we have today. So keep that in mind as you're planning ahead toward next week. By the middle of your spring break week, for many of us it's spring break, we're going to be tracking tornadoes potentially here across North Mississippi. And again, there remains that potential. We could still see some of those for today, hence the reason the tornado warning has been issued up here closer to the Millington, Tennessee area up here where we were looking a moment ago. We've been watching kind of this sort of beggar's hand sticking out there, see in front there. That's one of those spots where, sometimes we get that to develop into producing a tornado. Look at this a couple different ways with the wind kind of wrapping around on this to make sure we kind of have the best angle on that. I'm actually going to look at this, I think, from a longer distance away. I want to see what it looks like from, so that's the thing, from looking from the Memphis airport, you can almost see it a little bit better. We have a lot of, we might not be too close directly under it there to have a great angle, honestly, because it's so close to the radar. Believe it or not, sometimes that's the case. I'm going to see if this will let me go up a few scans. Yeah, let's go up on this few scans. Yeah, see, you can still kind of see that rotation, same spot there as we go up a little bit. You're not going to let me any higher on that? Let me change this to, let's see if that'll let me go up a little bit. Yeah, there we are. Those were all on. Okay, let's turn them all off then. So there's level 1. There we are, back to lower level. There we are. So I show that rotation. I don't know that that's quite the tornado levels there, but I'm tracking this right there east of Bolton, toward Bartlesville there. Yeah, Barrettville. I'm sorry about that. Bolton moving toward Galloway. So those are the spots kind of in advance of this there. I'll get you a storm track on that. Speed on this has been about 25 miles per hour. I'm going to take it directly toward the east and give you that. And then I'm going to bring up our chat here behind the scenes here for a moment. So let's bring that chat back up as we're talking about this here, trying to answer a few more questions. We talked a little earlier about the time in the Fulton area. We're looking probably in that after 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock time period for you, somewhere in there for Fulton. Again, we kind of talked timing on that a little bit ago, and you can go back and find it. Appreciate y'all. Memphis lost commercial power at NQA. Really? So what? How old is my? Let's bring it back to kind of the lowest scans on that. Give me a moment to kind of bring that back. Second, there we are. I guess that means they're back on generator power there. No, hold on. 10, 16, 18. My last time. Yeah, so my positioning is a little bit off on that. Yeah, they put that in just a second ago. Yeah, so we're definitely going to have to check on some of these other radars around that. So we're going to have to go to the Tower Doppler weather radar there and see. That's why that positioning is a little better out there near Rosemark. So let's get an adjusted track, some adjusted times. I'll get kind of the leading edge of that there. That one near Bartlett as well, one to watch. So there we go with that. Again, we show Mudsville there under that tornado warning, or ahead of that tornado warning, where that's moving into right now, still in the tornado warning. Ebenezer at 10:35 there, Arlington at about 10:38. And then, these are all locations in Tennessee, Somerville there at about 11:28. So we're going to keep watching this, obviously, for you behind the scenes. Not officially our area. Now, if we start talking down here in southern Shelby County, we do cover South Haven, Horn Lake, Olive Branch, your locations we do cover here on Mississippi Live Weather. And this part of this thunderstorm here, this wobbly part there, one that we have to watch for you. Let's get you kind of an early track here on these. Again, no official warning on this part of this thunderstorm here. If I'm tracking this, again, this is not going to look as intense as sometimes it does, because the main radar up in Millington is down, and so this one is the airport radar. It's very good at looking at strong winds. It does an okay job on precipitation. So you can see that track there. If you're in South Haven, that time, I want to double check that here. For the South Haven, it mentions at the top there's got to be some other, that's not like true South Haven. I have this set to do all kinds of little neighborhoods. Let's clear this up here for a moment. Let's get this. It's not enough stuff. Work a little bit bigger. Just a moment for that. There we go. It's accurate large locations, but I'm watching right there just north of the Tennessee state line, that little area of rotation right there that is on a track that will go over top of South Haven, go over top of Olive Branch, that area of rotation could potentially produce a tornado. So that's one we're going to have to watch very, very closely as over the next little bit here. So if you do know some folks up there, live in South Haven, live in Walls, live in Horn Lake and Olive Branch, you might snap a picture of this and you might send it to them, letting them know that this is an area of rotation that Doppler radar indicates that could potentially be trying to produce a tornado. So it's getting a little bit stronger there. And that's one we're going to have to watch pretty closely. I'll go and circle, come in here a little closer. We'll circle it for you. So kind of clear that off. It's right there where my mouse is. That's the spot that we're going to have to watch. Current time is 10:28 a.m. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather. We're a 24/7 weather streaming service here in based out in North Mississippi. And I'm going to keep kind of checking back and forth. Now that radar site looks like it's still down up there, unfortunately. So that's going to be a tricky thing for us. It does look like, again, they lost power up there at the radar site. But Millington, you can come out of that tornado safe place. You are past the worst of this, but Bolton, Madge, Ebenezer, Cannon Grove there, you're all in locations that need to be in your tornado safe place now. Reminder what that looks like for you. First off, this is Doppler radar indicated tornado warning that's been issued for some of these locations for the potential that a storm could try to produce a tornado. None has been confirmed at this time, but a possibility that one could be. So you want to make sure to, of course, find your safe place if you're out here in this red box. And really, honestly, the eastern portion of it, locations like Galloway, like Madge, like Ebenezer there, near U.S. Highway 70 and moving in the direction there of 40. You know, we're only about 10 miles away from 40. And with the fact that this storm is moving at about 25 miles per hour, means it's not going to be long before this crosses over top of both those locations I mentioned just a moment ago here. So kind of give you an idea on how long. I think the rotating part of this thunderstorm is no more than about 5 miles and 13 minutes away from US 70 and no more than about 20 minutes away from I-40. So if you know some folks out there kind of ahead of this, you know, just give them a heads up that, you know, maybe they want to be thinking about not crossing I-40 or going along I-40 there between Lakeland and out there toward Brownsville over the next, 30, 40 minutes or so. There's going to be some issues there, some strong straight line winds at the very least with this. As we come south here near the Darwin community, again, just north of the Tennessee state line, I look at these little indentations in this line. These are spots where I think we have a potential to see some damaging winds out of this at least, and perhaps even trying to produce a tornado. Well, Duke, you trying to say hi? Let's see the dog down there for a second. So I'll kind of explain my situation. If you're new to what we do here on Mississippi Live Weather, I know some folks here in Northwest Mississippi. I was for a TV station in Tupelo for about 15 years, a little more than 14 years, and started a 24/7 live streaming service. You can download our app right here. We have apps for all the different devices, for your smartphones, for your tablets, for your television. On Roku, just search for Mississippi. Pretty much first thing that shows up when you search for Mississippi is Mississippi Live Weather. That's the name of our brand and what we do here. We track storms, we track tornadoes. That's what we do. And we provide live broadcasts 7 nights a week at 6 and 10, 5 nights a week at 5, 6, and 10, and 5 days a week at 6:30, 7, and 7:30 a.m. So if you've just kind of happened upon us, that's what we do, that's what we are, and that's who we are. These little indentations are not tornadoes at this point, but they're areas to be monitored and watched. I'll go and circle them for you here. One we're looking at right there near US 61, another one near Bellevue, right along I-22. Just kind of looking back over time at these, this one was pretty interesting for a moment there, right as it crossed the Mississippi River. Again, no tornadoes confirmed out of either of these, but there are just going to be some spots and indentations in this line where the air coming into these storms is just going to fold around, and from time to time, brief tornadoes will be possible today. We will probably not get a better look at this until this gets all the way to Monroe County, Mississippi than what we have right now. This is about the best look we're going to get at this line, because this is the radar we're looking at is out of, the Memphis airport. And so it's looking there, intentionally look for turbulence. So what's more turbulent than a tornado, right? And so it's very high resolution. We're getting kind of in its best resolution down here in DeSoto County. And so this gives us an idea that even if our line of storms, and I'll look from a long ways away from down here all the way in the Tupelo area, we're undershooting any rotation that you would have there because we're looking from so far away. Unfortunately, though, the radar that's based out of the Memphis area, Millington, Tennessee, is down because they've lost power there. So we're going to have to rely on kind of secondary radars and questionable data today, unfortunately. National Weather Service going ahead and issuing a severe thunderstorm warning that does include DeSoto County, Mississippi, as well as Marshall County, Mississippi. That in effect until 11:15 a.m. Doppler radar indicating again some rotation in this line, more than the line can kind of point some of these spots. So a very heavy rainfall, again, likely out of this as well. I'll go ahead and pull down again that the overlay that we have as these storms move in. We're now just past the period here. This, again, need to be aware that we're going to continue to have some strong straight line winds and a rotation occasionally out of these thunderstorms as we go throughout this afternoon. If you don't mind, I'm going to pull myself off the camera here for a second. I'm going to sit down, or if this becomes a really long day. Caleb's joining me by around midday. Probably tap into Gabe at some point today as well. Perhaps even our Maggie McCauley, depending on how long today ends up going. Mind